Has anybody ever given you some type of life advice where it's kind of along the lines of it's not about the destination, it's more about the journey? Maybe it sounded something like this.
Sokka, I hope you learned a little something about not letting the plans get in the way of the journey.
Just play your songs.
And if not like that, maybe it sounded a little bit more motivational, inspiring like this.
Those times when you stay up late and you work hard, those times when you don't feel like working, you're too tired, you don't want to push yourself, but you do it anyway. That is actually the dream. That's the dream. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
All of that to say, there's actually like a crazy prime example of a man in the Bible that God knew face to face, where his life reflected that it was way more important the actual journey of getting somewhere than the destination itself. And in the last chapter of Deuteronomy, we see Moses, who is the leader that God was leading his people through. We see him at a very old prime age of 120 years old. And he is standing on Mount Nebo or Mount Nebo. And he sees the promised land across the Jordan River. And instead of being able to go to the promised land after 40 years of dealing with their concerns, dealing with their problems, dealing with their sins, their trauma that they faced in Egypt, he had to pass the torch on to Joshua, who was going to lead them into the land flowing of milk and honey, into the promised land. If you're Moses, you're 99% of the way complete of this journey. You get to Mount Nebo, you see the place that you're going, but instead of being able to go there, God says that your journey ends right here. In that same chapter, in chapter 34, it talks about how Moses, his sight was clear, and he was as strong as ever that he's ever been in his life. Verses 10 through 12, it says this: "There has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. The Lord sent him to perform all the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his servants in his entire land. With mighty power, Moses performed terrifying acts in the sight of all Israel." See, the crazy thing that we can learn from Moses' life is the fact that though it's very important that we know where God is taking us, that the journey, literally our lives with him, our relationship, our identity, our growth, everything that we're doing along the way with God is way more important than where he's taking us. Like, it didn't say at all one time in that chapter that when God told Moses that he wasn't going to be the one to take them into the promised land, that he cried, that he wept, that he complained, but it highlighted everything that he did along the way. It was never about where God was taking Moses. Like, I don't know about David. David was a man after his own heart, but imagine being called like a man, only man ever to know God, that God knew face to face. But if he was just focused on the destination, he wouldn't know. I don't think he would have God would have known him face to face if he was just focused on and tunnel vision on where God's taking him rather than looking to God himself. Let's be a people who do care about where God's taking us in our goals, in our aspirations, in our career, the fact that we want to go to heaven. That pales in comparison. That's not as important as it is to spend this side of eternity with God in intimacy and fellowship, right? That in itself is the arrival. That's the destination. And so let's focus on where we're at with God in our journey with him right now. It is so true. Where God is taking us, the destination is not as important as the journey. Anyway, I hope that encourages y'all. God bless. Love you guys. God loves you.